Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event. Today's event will be the story of Universal Roblox featuring Dapale. And today we're going to go over some questions about the game and some questions in general, and we'll be interviewing with Dapale. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A channel and we will answer them. So I'm going to hand over to Dapale and he's going to talk a little bit about what he does and yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys. Uh, I am the co-founder slash current head developer of Universal Roblox, as well as some other projects on Roblox. I've been on the platform since 2011. It's a long time now. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. And I've worked on a couple games from my early days in horror games. I kind of started um, doing things like with Slenderman and stuff. I don't even know if many people even some people might not even know what that is because it was so long ago. But I joined doing horror games, and then I kind of transitioned into just other general stuff. I worked alongside now do the Harlem Shake on the normal elevator, and then eventually I became one of the main developers here at Universal Roblox, and I think that was in 2016. So also it's also been a very long time just with this project, but I enjoy doing it. Um, yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's pretty much a basic overview.
No, that was great. Okay, let's get started into some of the questions then. I have a few and
Perfect.
then I've copied some from what people have asked. So the first question I have for you is what got you interested in Roblox and how did you get started on the platform as a whole?
Yeah. So in 2011, I it has like the weirdest connection, but I I guess I can go pretty in depth here, but so at the time, one of my dad's high school friends was on the show The Biggest Loser, which is like a extreme weight loss kind of like game show. Like they're trying to lose a bunch of weight. Well, he hit my dad's friend. He won that year's Biggest Loser, and we went to Oklahoma to go see him. We had never met him before, but we all wanted to like, hey, what's up, and meet them. Well, his son, the Biggest Loser winner, a really complicated way of saying that. Um, his son actually had a Roblox account, and he showed me. He's like, "Oh, I have a YouTube channel," and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of cool." And so I was like, "Okay, I'll look at it when I get home or something." Um, but this entire time, I wanted to work on. I was very much into Call of Duty and Call of Duty Zombies, and I always liked how Halo Reach, the specific Halo game at the time of this that I was interested in, people would make custom maps in Halo Reach, and they would make like these zombie maps, right? Yeah, there's a lot. I know there's a lot of connections here, but I was like, yeah, I really want to make my own zombies maps because that's cool. And then when I went to look at this guy's YouTube channel, he had like I saw a custom map that was replicating in Call of Duty Zombies, and I was like, whoa, that looks way better than Halo Reach because it looked way more custom. It looked like you had more creative freedom, and I was like, that looks cool. And so I went onto the platform. I tried to make the, if anyone even knows what this is, it's the what's it called? It is the Call of Duty the moon map. It was like a map on the moon. It was a Call of Duty Zombies map. Yeah, I don't really know how many people know that, but that was Black Ops 2. It was a long time ago. But it I made a little map. I thought it was a lot of fun, and eventually I started learning how to code through the platform. And yeah, I got interested just straight up because I thought it was cool to create my own little maps. And then little did I know that that would lead me to like the whole coding atmosphere and all that stuff that I ended up going through.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so keeping on that topic of Roblox itself, what do you personally enjoy the most about the platform, both as a creator and also a user?
What I enjoy most with the platform? Well, okay, I guess in a platform sense, but like before the community, just the platform sense. I do enjoy how people may have different arguments on this, but I do find Roblox to be a way easier way to kickstart a project compared to just like jumping on Steam or something, because Roblox gives you, you have like an unlimited number of servers that scale to your game that you make. You have instant multiple, like the server, I guess that's the same thing, but you have scalability, you have a free to use engine, and there's a bunch of tools that they give you, and there's an audience that already exists there. If you know what the general audience likes, you can pretty much make whatever you want and push it out as a game, and there will already be an audience that can get fed it if you understand a few things about maybe the recommendation algorithm, which I understand that's a debate if that's even good. But yeah, that should be simplified in how well you can reach your audience. But nonetheless, there is an audience, and then they also scale your servers, which I very much enjoy. It's really helpful as a creator. In terms of the community, um, there I think what one of the most cool things about it, and this was even on in early times of Roblox, um, usually you were able to find a pretty niche group of people who liked things that you like just because they played those certain games. And so a lot of communities have spawned out of Roblox, such as maybe some people here are in the Coaster Team Discord, for example, or just even our own games Discord. You usually find these niche groups of people that were all interested in very specific things. And so, I was interested in uh, physics and programming and also theme parks. And then there's a lot of people who are in that coaster community who all grew up with Roblox, and they learned some of the physics that are behind coasters. They learned things about how coasters and theme parks actually operate, all just because we found each other through these niche games. And I think maybe this is actually a good argument for Roblox. They always try to call themselves like the metaverse. I think it was more of a metaverse before than it is now, but I really much did enjoy being able to reach that kind of niche audience.
Definitely, and over the last couple of years, the platform has changed massively.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Um, yeah,
cool. Okay, so I think we should probably start moving into Universal Roblox itself. And I
perfect.
guess the best place to start was, how did you join it? Where did you hear about it? Or did you know Andrew originally? Or how did you find out about the game?
Yeah, so this is funny because I I had seen the game and I played it and I thought it was really cool, but I wasn't a part of the project when it first opened, and nor did I know. I might have like known Andrew from his other random projects, like the City Walk and stuff that was made before. But I didn't really have a close communication with him. And I think back in 2016, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opened at Universal Studios Hollywood. It opened during, at the time, my spring break, April of 2016, and I really really liked it. I had seen the Wizarding World at Florida, but once having it like at home, I was like, oh okay, became more accustomed to it, and so I started making my own build of that actual like land. And so I showed Andrew that the progress I had made on it, which was a few of like the buildings as you were going down the street, and he was like, "Wow, that it looks great. Would you like to work on this for Universal Roblox? Would you like to put it in the game?" And I was like, "Sure." And so basically, I focused on doing the Wizarding World project. That did take about, I think it took 2 years from the day I started there till the day we actually released it. Um, but it was a lot of work and it was fun. But yeah, I joined through showing off my ability to I guess work on something that I wasn't necessarily asked of me, but just like showing off my cool work, which that's exactly the kind of way we look for people who if we need to find someone who is super creative in a certain kind of like, they're a good modeler, they're a good programmer, we usually look at their past work, and if they show off things that are cool, we're like, hey, you want to join? Question mark. So, but yeah, back to the point. Um, Although I was only initially focused on the Wizarding World project, I kind of started like just doing random things. Like I made the first line system in the Halloween event in 2016 because there was like a queuing system. It was basically just like everyone stood in a line and hopefully everyone followed the line. It was very weird back then. Old Roblox was a lot of fun. It was very weird, but it was a lot of fun. Uh, and so I made the first little line system, and then I did at the time the Walking Dead attraction. That was like I don't know. I don't really know what made me do that. I don't know if I just like did it or if I was asked to do it. But we did that, and that was a lot of fun to do because I hadn't worked on any of the Halloween events or anything, so that was my first haunted house of a sort, and so I thought it was cool to do that. So yeah, and then eventually I just started getting more involved in programming the event because one of our at the time our head programmer was kind of busy with other things, and so I started trying to take over things. So yeah, that's it took a little bit longer to get that point across, but yeah.
No, fair enough. The Walking Dead game, I remember playing it in the very early days of the game,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
no,
was very different from what it is now.
yeah, it was it. Yeah, I think it came out in early 2017, maybe.
I think it was, yeah, around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. It is, what inspired you to take Universal Studios from Andrew and continue the legacy of the game?
So I don't think like obviously as someone who isn't in like the internal team, we didn't I didn't like take it from him or anything. We were like pretty much I guess co-owners at a point. We were both working together on things, and still to this day, Andrew works a lot on the project. He helped a lot in managing Halloween Scare Nights this year, so he's not like out of the picture. He just didn't want the responsibilities of managing the overall project, and so he told me at one point, "Hey, I have a lot of stuff going on in life. Um, do you just want to be like the figurehead and help manage a little bit more of the other, end-to-end stuff, just to try to get things going?" And I was like, well, it sucks that you're handing it over to me right when we have to do this IP removal thing. But yeah, I'll do it just because, um, like, I feel like I was pretty well accustomed. I had wrote, at the time, all the code in the game was essentially my code besides a few little pieces. And so I felt like it was just a good position. It made sense to do it. And so, yeah.
Okay. I think on the sort of topic of IP removal, is it worth maybe explaining a little bit of why that change happened for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah. So IP is intellectual property, which is essentially like I guess characters, movies, anything that's made in a creative way that's not owned or it's owned by some like the creator, right? So if for example, the new Wild Robot movie, Wild Robot and that movie is considered intellectual property of Universal slash NBC Universal. Um, and so without a license, if we didn't have a license to use Wild Robot, if we put Wild Robot in our game and try to do anything with Wild Robot, that would be illegal without a license. It is their intellectual property, and you can't use it just out of the blue. So in the earlier days of Roblox, it there wasn't really like you didn't just make money off the game. It was kind of just making things for fun and making things to show off. I don't know, just that you were involved in that community and you just kind of wanted a place for people to have fun. Well, Roblox changed and it became way more of a like game development distribution platform, and they started cracking down on the use of intellectual property without licenses, which is rightfully so. I understand it. Um, and our game did start making money, so we were like, okay, we do need to remove this intellectual property. And even if we weren't making money, it's still against the law to use intellectual property without licensing. So it took us a while to do it, but there was the thing that like mainly made us make that decision and like go ahead with it is I believe at the time our clothing designer got like 50 of his items taken down automatically by some AI IP detection bot they made. And so we're like, okay, well, if they're going to start doing this, what's going to end up happening is a lot of our audio, because a lot of our audio at the time was also intellectual property, it wasn't owned by us. They run automatic audio IP detection, and so a lot of our audios were getting deleted. And basically, what would have ended up happening in the long run if we didn't do this IP removal is the entire game would have probably lost like the majority of sounds. You wouldn't hear anything in the game. The sounds would be deleted. Maybe some of the textures or images would be deleted, and even the game itself could have gotten taken down because we didn't have proper licensing to use. If any of the IP owners filed a DMCA takedown request because we were using their intellectual property without a license. So obviously we would love to have the intellectual property in our game, but it's extremely hard to you can't do that without a license. And people are always asking us, why don't you get the licenses? Well, licenses are extremely expensive, and the scale of this game doesn't have there's no yeah the game doesn't make enough money to even get like a single large license. Like if we wanted to put the entire game's profits into a license, we could maybe get one big movie, like one, and the game used to have like, I don't know, 30 properties or something. There was a lot of properties that were used before. So yeah, unfortunately, it's just a hard problem at the scale of the game. And I mean, even a lot of Roblox games, they don't usually have more than one property or one promotion event at a time. It's just not doable unless we somehow got into a contract deal or got bought by NBC Universal, who has the rights to potentially fix this and make licensing agreements that would include our game. So I don't expect that to happen, but yeah, it's a difficult problem, and yeah, it's unfortunate, and we made us change a lot of things, especially some we had to do quicker than others, and some things still haven't recovered from that time, like the Forbidden Adventure ride in the Wizarding Village area. That ride's still not done, right? And like that closed initially because of the IP removal situation. So, although unfortunate, it was necessary to keep the game active, alive, and prevent it from being closed.
Definitely, and although it was a big change, I think it works out quite well because we had the best Halloween event I think we've ever had this year as well.
Yeah, I like the Halloween event. I'm sure we'll probably get some questions there.
Yep.
But yeah, I love the Halloween event.
Okay, so moving on to a slightly different topic about Universal. Lots of the questions follow the same line of what was your greatest accomplishment out of the whole game?
Ooh, greatest accomplishment out of the whole game. Huh. So, okay, the weird thing about Universal Roblox, I'm gonna give you some quick context and why this is difficult for me to answer. I would say the difficult the reason it's difficult to ask this question is sorry, wow, I don't know why. It's difficult to answer this question because although a lot of the things in Universal Roblox are there are some pretty cool things. I don't think anything I've done specifically in Universal was like groundbreaking technology or like programming techniques that I discovered with Universal. It was mainly like, oh, I did some complex things in my own personal projects, and then that allowed me to come back to Universal and work on things that I've done in my own personal time. There are certain things that I think we did a great job on. It's not my work, but the Epic Twin, that's his username, he has a really, really good ride system slash coaster animation kind of like tool that we use on all of our attractions. And we like set up triggers and things, just the trigger effects like you kind of would do in real life with sensors and things. So he did a great job with that. That's not my greatest accomplishment, obviously, because that's his work. But we did an update in, gosh, was it actually 2 years ago now? Was it July of 22 or July of 23?
I think it was 22.
Wow, it's been
Scary.
2 years of the new stuff. Wow. Okay, yeah. So in July of 2022, we did a huge, like, I basically recoded the entire game. Um, all the UI, we replaced all the interface. We, uh, everything, all the code was new, and that made things so much cleaner, and it made it so much easier to add new content to the game in a much quicker way, right? Although things still take a long time for us to develop, what's actually crazy is I feel like our develop time schedule is the exact same it's been in the past, but we actually have less time than we've ever had before, but I think we're still developing at the same rate because of all the changes made in the framework. Had I not made all those changes, we'd probably get even slower updates or slower content releases. So I think it was very helpful that we did that because pretty much everyone on the project right now has full-time jobs, like the main development team. So yeah, it's hard to get things in. But yeah, I think my greatest accomplishment was this general framework that I redid for the entire game because it's really clean. Everything works together pretty well, and it's easy to maintain and update in a quick way. So I like that the most.
Okay. On the flip side to that question, what would you say was the most difficult thing to add in the game or create?
The most difficult thing to add? Um, hmm. Well, I mean, Halloween Scare Nights this year provided a lot of problems, not necessarily with just like the code that was needed for them, but we had to leverage so many decisions to even get this game working and to like make sure all the variables were considered. And we still made mistakes because it was such a hard problem to answer. Um, although that was complicated, that wasn't most of it wasn't a complicated like coding or implementation. Uh, I think the thing that took the longest amount of time to actually do in Universal was the alien attack gun system. I was confident I knew how to do it and I knew what I was going to do, but I had to make sure on day one that it worked for controllers, touch screens, and keyboard and mouse. So I had to work on all the platforms on day one. And there's a lot of moving parts. Well, like literally, the ride vehicles move, and so there's a lot of moving parts to the laser guns and all that stuff. And yeah, it was a little complicated, but I knew what I needed to do, and like I don't think there was ever a giant pause where I was like, I don't know how to solve this problem. There were bugs and things that got solved, but it took the most amount of time of any of our projects probably just because it needed that whole gun shooting framework thing to it.
Okay. Awesome. Alien Attack is one of my favourite rides, and that leads on to our next question of what is your favourite ride in Universal?
Oh, um, huh. Well, I typically like if I'm just like playing the game just randomly by myself or just checking something out, or if I'm like trying to show someone the quality of it, I usually do go to Alien Attack or Web Adventures. I I also like to ride Jurassic Coaster, but I think Alien Attack and Web Adventures really show off the quality of the kind of work that can be done by our team and by other teams. Um, Maybe Alien Attack because Alien Attack has the whole pre-show element, and then it has a pretty fun like Easter eggs and things you can see through the queue. So maybe I'll go with Alien Attack. I do really like Web Adventures as like the ride itself, but I feel like Alien Attack just has so much going on in it, and I like it a lot.
Fair enough. Yeah, both of them are really good as well. So massive well done to the team on those rides.
Yeah, they did a great job.
So what advice would you give to an aspiring Roblox developer that you've learned since making games?
Um, so Roblox is I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier in that like yeah, there's an audience that exists in Roblox and they have this recommendation algorithm that will try to find that audience for you when you release a game. Um, So when it comes to that, although I just said like, oh, it's great, you could, like, there's an audience that already exists and you can make games and stuff. I would two things I would do or keep in mind when you're going to make a game on Roblox or develop on Roblox. Um, Although you may really like a certain idea, there are very specific things that don't really work on Roblox. You can do a single player game. You can make a single player game on Roblox. It's very likely it might do well for a small amount of time, a little bit of time, but that typically Roblox games excel when they are social games and they're multiplayer. Um, and then they have some sort of general gameplay loop. Uh, oh yeah, obviously there is a few times in before 2016 where I wanted to make single player games. Uh, I started working on some, and then I just realized even if this game got popular, it wouldn't stay popular because it just doesn't. Roblox is a social platform. It's not. If you want to make a single player game, unfortunately, you'll probably have to go out and do the extra amount of research to go and make a game on a different engine and publish it to Steam or Epic Games or wherever. Because there are certain projects that I don't think work on Roblox. And then the second thing, this goes for any game developer on any platform. Make a game that you want to make and that you want to play. Don't make a game because I want dollars, I want money. Just make a game that you would enjoy going into yourself and that you want to play. And typically, there will be other people who also want to play the same type of game that you want to play. And that's typically a recipe for success. When you make a fun game for yourself, you also make fun games for other people.
I would say that advice is perfect for anyone new who wants to make a game. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned on your what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from your Roblox experience as a whole?
Um. Well, we just learned a pretty big one with Halloween Scare Nights. Obviously, when you're working on different projects, you have to make a ton of assumptions on, and this is outside the game development too. This might even go for like almost every job ever if you're making anything for the general public. Um, you have to make assumptions based on how people may or may not react to different scenarios. And hey, if your audience is going to like something, dislike something, are they going to understand this? Are people going to know what to do in this case? And I think what a lot of Roblox games, well, the popular games do well, and the unpopular games unfortunately don't do well, is, or I think the most complicated thing that people don't get to exactly as a developer is they make assumptions that like a player just knows how to play your game no matter how you make it. There is a ton of work that should go into, I guess, like if I jumped in this game for the first time and I saw nothing about it, how would I react? And see, the reason it's so hard for people and developers to know or even understand that is because you'll never be able to step into someone's shoes and just not know what your game's like. Like you've been working on it for all this time, you know the ins and outs of how things are. You have to get the game into people's hands, maybe either through beta testing or whatever, to see how they react to it with no bias, right? So if you get people to go into your game and then you see them get confused, you can ask them questions about why they're confused, but you shouldn't tell them, "Oh, you press this, press that, and then you go over here." That is going to get them to a point that they didn't get to by themselves, right? So if you learn about a lot about how people interact with your game, either through like direct play tests where you watch what they do, or you track statistics and you see where players like go to, what the buttons they press, and you figure out how to make those better and make it more seamless, you typically will get people more interested and more willing to play your game longer, and just get people invested in your community. if you don't just like make it super complicated from the beginning. And so one question we always get asked is, hey, why did you guys remove the menu from Universal Roblox? So what used to happen is there was like a menu page, and it had a play button, it had all these different buttons. It's basically what you see right now when you join the game. It's on the left side of the screen. It used to be like a whole screen, and then you had to press play, and then you had to choose a place to start, and it was like the theme park, the hotel, or the shopping center, right? And so the problem with that is a lot of people had like no idea what they joined for the first time, and they were expecting, oh, I'll see a theme park, but they see a menu with a bunch of interfaces, a bunch of buttons, and there's some people who never even press the play button and then press the theme park button, right? They didn't even get to that point. Or they pressed the play button and then they didn't press the theme park. They went to somewhere that wasn't the theme park, but they initially played the game expecting a theme park. So there's all these things that people can get stuck in, and you as a developer, like, well, it looks good, I like it, but why are people not liking it, or why are people not playing it? It's typically because either they don't understand something, they don't see it the same way that you saw it, or you made an incorrect assumption about how a player was going to go about something, right? And so I think trying to figure out when you can make good assumptions, when you shouldn't make assumptions, and like seeing how people go through your development process and how people go through what you present is a very smart way to understand how to improve your experiences in your games. Um, Try to remove all the bias from your head. It's not that's an impossible task, but try your very best to see things as a new player would see them, and typically that will really help you um, streamline the playing process, the game process, or across any industry. Honestly, uh, don't make too strong of assumptions, but also don't make things suck because you don't add anything of substance to the game because you don't want people to get confused. There's like a fine balancing act.
That's great advice. And the menu, a lot of people do say, oh, I want the old menu back, but it is a very
Yeah.
much understandable reason for removing it, and it does help a lot of new players with the
Yeah,
game.
because now you play and you're immediately in the theme park,
Yeah,
and the tabs on there now are just like additional pages of people wanting to look at things, news, and all that stuff more quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the questions we have coming in on the Q&A panel is why did you get rid of the city walk slash shopping area? It didn't have any IP.
So yes, most of it didn't have IP. I think yeah, like the majority had been un-IP'd already. The reason we got rid of it, um, well, it was just another part of the game we had to maintain. So if we ever made updates to, like, oh, how I don't know, a small piece worked, right? Let's say for some reason I wanted to change how the fast travel worked. I would have to make sure that, oh, if it was I was moving positions or I was moving stuff in the game, I had to make sure all the fast travel locations for all those shops still worked, right? And then if I had to change something, that the night lighting or something had to change, that means we had to update all of the night lighting in the game. That's just another piece I have to update. It it kind of, the decision was more so that we saw that a huge amount of people didn't, like, most people ignored the area, but if they didn't ignore it, there were some players who would go through that Universal Plaza portal at the very entrance of the game, and then they would go through the shopping center and they would leave because they don't see theme park again. It's the same problem as the menu. Um, and so we went through a few designs when changing this. We were gonna have like a very mini shopping center right at the entrance, but we also realized that like that's still the same problem where you're not seeing theme park, you're seeing shops, you're seeing, like, it's not, people didn't play this to go through the shopping center, they went to go to the theme park. Um, and so our eventual goal was to take all the shops and things, most of them, maybe not all, but most of the content that was in Universal Plaza, and disperse the shops into the park so there's more actual things just around the park. And so there's still like 3 or 4 shops that we want to add. We kind of got delayed on that because it's like a shakeup in Avatar accessories and what's going on there. So we still want to finish that and put more stores into the park. But yeah, having it as a separate area that had to be maintained in addition to the rest of the park, which is and also it not being the most popular place and kind of adding to that whole it's not a theme park, it's a shopping center idea. It's hard to justify keeping it there and updating it when it was it wasn't used that much.
Yeah, fair enough. I did enjoy shopping, and I remember it when it first came out, but over time it did get quieter. But it was a good
Yeah.
addition.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, the initial version was very big, and at some point we scaled it down a bit to put it into the Universal. What do we call it now? The Production Central area, which is like the backlot and stuff with the Rip Ride. What is it called? Rocking Coaster.
Yeah.
So yeah, it unfortunately was just not traveled well enough, and it was hard to maintain. So.
Cool. One of the other questions coming in is if you had the opportunity to bring back any old ride, what ride would you bring back?
Ooh. The opportunity to bring back any old ride. Let me think. See, a lot of the old rides, most of them were removed just because either they weren't of quality or they got replaced by a newer version, right? There are like very select ones that were just removed because, like, I guess Stu's Disco Coaster was removed because he removed all the Simpsons intellectual property from the game. People like Stu's Coaster. I actually, even though I was involved in that project, I still didn't understand. I guess I still don't understand why it was so popular. That one I just never understood. I know people liked it. Maybe it was the music. But I'm indifferent to Stu's. And then we had the Flying Dinosaur, which was kind of back in the Jurassic Kingdom area. It was a B&M wing coaster. It was a good coaster, but it was also just an exposed steel, barely themed coaster. And so the reason we put Megalodon there is we were able to wrap Megalodon more a bit around the park. I don't know. Megalodon was put in the game for, hey, we're not ready for the River Adventure ride. Here's a coaster in the meantime because we can make coasters way more easily. And eventually when the river ride came, we're like, okay, the coaster that doesn't exist in real life at a Universal park doesn't really make sense in our park. And also it's just an exposed steel coaster. Let's try to just let's remove it because we have better things coming. I'm trying to think of rides that I don't think we removed anything that was like. I mean, okay, I guess I'll say if I had the opportunity to add back the Ghostbusters walkthrough haunted house, I would. I think that was one of our best haunted houses, and it was a lot of fun. We put a lot of work into that house. It looked great, but yeah, we don't have the licensing to use Ghostbusters, so we can't use that house anymore. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Fair enough. I would say Stew was my favourite one, mainly because it was indoors and then it would go outdoors, and I don't think there's any ride similar to that on Universal today.
Yes, that would be true. Yeah.
I think that's all for me. That's what made it unique. I
As
don't
of
know about
now,
other people. As of now.
as
Okay.
of now, we may have a project that we've been slowly working on that does go indoor and outdoor again, but I will keep that secret.
Okay. Keep an eye out for that update then.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We should move on to Halloween deal, the Halloween event in general, I guess.
Yeah.
So the main question, which there are quite a few questions about it, is why was the event paid this year?
Yes. So the event was paid this year because, well, it was actually very similar to um, our previous years. So in our last big Halloween event was in 2020 when we did essentially what we did this year. Um, So in 2020 and the previous years, the event used to be within the main game. This is before age ratings. That's the primary reason we put it into a separate game anyway, because it has a 13 plus age rating, and we didn't want to restrict the Universal Park game from being accessed by everyone who's under the age of 13, right? So in 2020 and before, it used to be in the main game, and we would sell tickets. There was day tickets, and there were like season passes, or essentially, right? The day tickets, I think, yeah, the day tickets were about 10 Robux per day, and then the season passes were like 150 Robux for attending it for the duration of the event. So we wanted to get rid of the idea of having the 1 day tickets because there was a lot of complicated things that were involved there. People had to figure out which days the event was open, how long their ticket was good for, and we thought it was complicated and that we could improve the whole ticketing system and just say, hey, there's one price and you buy and you have it for the whole season. And we want to make it cheaper than it used to be, so that you're not spending 150 Robux like that's what it used to be. It was 150 for the season. But it's not 10 for a day. So we're like, okay, I think 50 is a pretty good reasonable amount, and that's only for the houses. We gave the whole event and scare zone stuff out for free, which it used to be behind the day tickets and the season pass. So the scare zones and stuff was none of that was free. So we're like, okay, let's make it just have the haunted houses cost Robux. However, that was we made an incorrect assumption with this whole thing, and it was, yes, our audience understood the ticketing system. People who played our old Halloween events knew what to expect, right? When this was in VIP previews, it had like a 94-95% approval rating, and we're like, okay, we're good, we did a good job, we're happy. But then when we released it to the public and the game started getting recommended to new users, that assumption no longer held, because these people had no idea what the event was, and so they would join the game and they would see, oh my goodness, I can't play it. It seemingly looks like they can't play the game, right? Like they try to go into any of these haunted houses and it requires them to buy it. So they feel like, oh, they were misled into thinking this is some big Halloween event. It's like, no, I have to pay for it. And it led to a lot of people disliking the game. And it's a bad look. I wish we had not failed in that assumption. What we should have done is made the game paid access or something like that, right? But to kind of focus more on the general question, the paid access decision would be because it would be an upfront. It would show you, hey, this game is 50 Robux, and you're not unintentionally misleading people into thinking it's this big event that's completely free to access, right? A lot of people don't read your description of your game and all that stuff, so you shouldn't assume that they'll understand how it works, and that was the incorrect assumption we made this year. But yeah, back to the whole point. Why is it even purchasable to begin with? Like, why is there a price tag on the event at all? Well, the event costs an extraordinary amount to develop, both time and money wise, right? And the event only lasts for a month ish, right? And so to even justify making the event and not losing money on it, we have to kind of have some sort of paid access. And it's not like we just reuse all the content that we've made in previous years. This year we made all new haunted houses and all new scare zones. So everything that was made in the event was new. We didn't reuse anything, and so the development cost of doing that is high. So we had to have an access price to it to even justify or even cover how much we spent to develop it and the hours and stuff that that Andrew and I put in. We don't pay ourselves through like commission. We pay ourselves a percentage of the game's revenue. So even though I may have put 250 hours into Halloween Scare Nights, I may have only made like some small amount per hour if you took it into hours, because yeah, that's just we commission people, and then Andrew and I just get a percentage when everything's all done. So that all being said, yeah, it's just to cover the cost of development.
No, fair enough. And the event this year, I would say, is the best event Universal has ever had. It had so much more detail and was much bigger than any of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm proud because I'm proud that I think the team did a great job. Um, we had some really fun and creative ideas. We had been talking about these house ideas and some of these scares and ideas for 2 years. We had them in our like backlog of, hey, these are cool things we could do. And so I think we did a great job in some of like the creative idea department, I guess you could say. I really like the Mannequins Alive scare zone. I really like um, Jigsaw Junkyard, and then of course I really enjoy Lost Riches and the Bigfoot houses. Um, I personally wrote a lot of like the Lost Riches ideas, like and as well as the Bigfoot ideas. I liked the storylines we had and like the ideas we had, and I think the team did a very good job executing on those ideas.
Definitely. And they did a great job for the whole event. It was great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, I loved it. It was. I think we did. I just love going through the event too. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Okay, what would you say your favourite Halloween maze this year would be, and what is your favourite maze of all time in Universal Roblox?
That's a hard question. The maze question's hard because how many have we had now? Like 30. There's a lot. We've done a lot of haunted houses now. Um. Okay. I do really much. I do enjoy our Ghostbusters house we did. I thought that was very good. Um, but I think it's a toss up between, for me, it's a toss up between Lost Riches this year and, oh man, I'm like going through all of our different houses and I'm
There are a lot.
oh, I I also liked our Halloween 2 house we did.
Yep.
I think it was that 2018. I think it was in 2018.
Yeah, 2017 was the first one, I think.
Okay, yeah. I enjoyed our Halloween 2 house. I put a lot of like my own ideas into it and I enjoyed that house a lot. I played it so many times. Um Halloween 2, Lost Riches, and I would probably say that I also put a lot of work into that for Stranger Things house. Um did we do Stranger Things before Universal did Stranger Things or did we do it the exact same year?
I think you did it the same year, but you announced it before they did.
Yeah, yeah. So because I think we, yeah. So I don't. We did hear rumblings before that they were gonna do Stranger Things, and we're like, dang, we're doing it too. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool that we were doing it at the same time, but yeah, no, we made everything based like that was our own original maze, and I liked it. I think our third version of it was the best one. Um, but yeah, I think it's between Halloween 2 and Lost Riches. I really like both of those houses.
Fair enough, good choices. Lost Riches this year was definitely my favourite one.
Yeah,
It's a great
yeah.
one.
It's really hard to beat. It's just visually, it looks awesome.
That
The
sort of
modeling
leads on
they did
to
so
the
good.
next question of how did you come up with original names that weren't IP related? Did you get any inspiration from other
Hmm.
IPs or
Honestly, I mean, I'm sure different things influenced our like naming when we were randomly, um, I guess like just like coming up with ideas. I'm sure there was random things that popped in our head that were influenced by maybe an intellectual property, but to be totally honest, I think a majority of these names were just original ideas. I don't really know if there was too much influence by any real life one. I mean, obviously Graveyard Madness Into the Catacombs is kind of Graveyard Madness is kind of inspired by Graveyard Games. Although this Into the Catacombs one is doesn't exist. It's an original one. It's kind of taking um, Dead Exposure and Graveyard Games from real life and kind of making its own little thing of it. It's not exactly the same. but there's a there's kind of a connection between those houses. And then let's see, Bigfoot is just kind of a typical cryptid like story. Is that how you say that?
I think so. Yeah.
Bigfoot. We knew we wanted to do Bigfoot, and just like or just other things like Bigfoot. And although the ideas changed a bit, um, the initial ideas of our Bigfoot house was gonna. It wasn't a detective house like it was. That kind of morphed into that as we worked on it. But it was gonna be just like. Actually, that's not true. I think you always were gonna be a detective, but it was gonna be a lot less obvious than it is now. Because obviously you have like the detective dialogue and all that stuff. It was initially gonna be like you just stumbled upon a car that was parked at a rest stop that was like I don't know, it was just running and its door was open and you would pass by that and you would kind of walk into the forest and there's basically like a giant camera crew and people who were trying to find out who Bigfoot was, and like you make it to their campsite and you find that it's like all destroyed, and then the camera crew had all been kind of killed, and like that's how you eventually run into Bigfoot. And so that was the original concept. I mean, I think what we did is a little bit better than that. But yeah, a lot of the ideas just kind of happened just naturally. I think there Barnyard Terror might have been slightly inspired by Scarecrow the Reaping, and then Carnival Carnage actually was very heavily inspired by what's the house called? Uh, oh my gosh, Carnival Graveyard. I don't know if that was the actual name of it, but there, yeah. So, but yeah, most of the names and all that thing, they were just kind of we just came up with them. I'm sure there was influence like an unknown bias that influenced us, but like I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what they are.
Fair enough. Yeah, that was a great answer. One of the other questions coming in is, will there be any haunted houses with lights on, for example, the ones that were in backstage?
So we haven't done any work. It might take a bit, might not do it instantly, but I think we'll maybe um probably put the Bigfoot house in backstage with lights on, because that house is like in one of the sprung tents or whatever that are usually there. So the Bigfoot house will probably go there. I don't know when, but we'll put it there sometime in the future.
Fair enough. Okay. Cool. If we step back from Halloween a little bit then and go back to the Roblox in general questions,
Mm-hmm.
what inspires you to keep creating content on Roblox as a whole?
So inspiration randomly comes and goes, right? Obviously, we were very excited to do, I guess back to the Halloween event. We were very excited to do the Halloween event because it had been since 2020 that we made new houses or anything like that. So we had tons of inspiration and we were very excited to do it. And it was just like out of love for the event and love of the craft. Um, and honestly, I think I've even said this before when I've been kind of asked about the inspiration part. I don't know if I'm normal when it comes to inspiration in terms of like how my mind burns out and how my mind keeps myself motivated. I feel like a lot of people have a lot more problems and a lot more difficulty than I do getting myself motivated to work on things. And I do take a long time sometimes to do things, but I usually try to get things done. And I usually am pretty okay with that. But I think I answered this the last time I talked about motivation and inspired and how not to get burned out. I don't know if I can answer that well because there's a lot of people who can answer that question better, and I feel like I don't really face too much burnout myself, and yeah, I don't think I could provide a good answer to that that would be helpful for people. But I know there's people out there who have answered that, and there's good tips and uh, that I've heard. So
Fair enough. Okay. So, one another question from someone is, are there any other theme park games on Roblox that you enjoy playing?
Hmm. I mean, growing into the platform before Universal existed, I really liked Roblox Point. It was like that was like kind of the best park that before Universal came around, in my opinion, obviously. Um, so I really liked Roblox Point. Honestly, I've seen a lot of other parks, but I haven't really found many that like I always go back to. Uh, I don't know. I feel like Universal, even though I obviously have a bias because I worked on Universal Roblox, but I feel like it has a charm to it that I haven't found in too many theme park games. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's like people have made individual rides that are recreations off real life that I like, and I like checking out randomly. But I wouldn't say I don't go out of my way to just go to a theme park game on Roblox anymore, unless I like replaying Universal just to like see what's in the game and how people react to stuff. Which again, it's probably just because of a bias that I work on this game.
Fair enough. Yep, definitely. Universal is one of my all-time favourite games. It's very unique, as you say, from other games on the platform as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and we strive to keep the quality up. Obviously, it was made in 2016, and you know we have to keep updating it to make sure it stays up to modern-ish standards. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Fair enough. Okay, we're almost done. There's only a couple more questions to go. One question I have for you is: was Universal Roblox your first ever theme park project you worked on the platform?
Ooh, hmm. I mean, yeah, yes. Any like public? Oh no, that's not true. I had to think about it for a second. Um, before I did Universal Roblox, I made a Haunted Mansion holiday ride. Um, it's not public and you can't even access it anymore because it broke and the sound got deleted. That's like what would have happened with our this game too if we didn't update it. But yeah, I made like a Haunted Mansion holiday. I played around. If anyone remembers these, I played around in the oh my gosh, what were they called? Oh no, remember remember those servers that you used to be able to build with like the stamp tool and
Yep.
things?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of what they used to call those things?
Welcome to Roblox Building was the main one. It had like the build tool, it's just builders tools, I guess.
Uh huh. Remember when they introduced the voxel terrain for the first time?
Yep.
That kind of looked like Minecraft.
Yeah, the blocky sort of feeling.
Yeah. Do you remember they had servers specifically for building in those worlds?
Oh, I can't
What were
remember.
they
It was so long
called?
ago.
I'm trying to remember but basically, I, I what I used to do is I would take that terrain tool and water used to have like a direction and a magnitude you could apply to it, so you could have like the water flow in a certain direction. I used to make boat rides with that, right? And so I built a whole boat out of all the stamper tool models attached to like some anchored object, and then delete a part that like connected it to the anchored object, and then you'd have the whole boat. It could flow in the water. And so I'd make these boat rides that had like sensors and triggers, and it was all through the Roblox tools, right? And so I'd make boat rides and have them go down drops and things, and they would have block sections and stuff, so it wouldn't like pass a certain part if it didn't reach the sensor. It was fun, but yeah, I know no, you're not gonna see that publicly, and the water doesn't have a direction or any of that stuff anymore, so you can't really do that. But I mean, public facing that you could still play right now, yeah, it's my only one. But yeah, I did like internal small things before. They weren't great, but they were just like fun projects at the time.
Fair enough. Okay, I have three more questions, and then that'll be all of them. One of the
Perfect.
questions is from someone in the public on the Q&A, and it says, "Is there ever a thought to have more than one hotel in the game?"
So, I mean, we were thinking about it, and we even had, if you've seen the hotel in real life, the Adventura Hotel. People call it the fidget spinner hotel because it looks like the shape of a fidget spinner from the sky. But we actually had a lot of the Aventura done. But I think we came to the conclusion that it wouldn't really make sense to add multiple hotels, but instead we should probably just make like a good hotel. And I'll make the argument now. I don't think Summer Bay right now is what we want it to be. It's very bare bones. It's not. There's not much to it. And so I think we want to go back at some point. I don't know when. It's like a weird priority because everyone wants us to make rides, obviously, in Halloween events, right? And people aren't like, oh, make the hotel. Like most people don't care about that. But at some point, I'd like to make the hotel way more modern. Maybe even have the ability to, I guess I don't know if it'd be called a hotel or like apartments, but it'd be able to like modify the rooms, maybe have like parties or something. And I wanted to do more than just having it be a hotel. And if it is just a hotel, I want it to be better than it is now. And we've been talking about that for like 3 or 4 years now. We just haven't gotten around to it. So I don't know if we will have multiple hotels unless we make these apartments or whatever, and we have a bunch of different style or different places you can have your apartments. Then maybe there's multiple of those. But I don't know if they'll have multiple hotels just dispersed like Summer Bay or whatever.
Fair enough. Okay. So the final two questions I have for you is how do you manage a project timeline for Universal Roblox? How do you sort of plan how you do a ride?
So in terms of deadlines, we pretty much don't put a deadline on anything except for the things that are seasonal. Like the Halloween event obviously has to have a deadline, but we can't really do much about that. We have to give it enough time to where it lasts before Halloween and it has enough time to make the money back. And then obviously the holiday, I guess, like event has to start at a certain day in the exact same way the Halloween one needs to as well. Um, but for most of our projects, we don't put deadlines on things because that typically that will eventually just lead to rushed projects and lower quality builds. And yeah, I mean that might be why we have long windows between attractions. Like, yeah, it does. I know that obviously it takes a long time for us to release things, but I think we the majority of the time we were very focused on the quality we want to deliver with our rides. Right, we don't want to release a ride we half bake and just ruin because we tried to rush it too much. Right. Um, so we try very hard to not do that. Um, but when it comes to, like, if you're talking about the actual like project timeline, like how a project looks and how it goes through its development cycle, what typically happens is it starts as just writing. We write some stuff, maybe draw a few random pictures on a really bad pictures. Like you go into paint and you scribble a bit. We draw a few things. We're like, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or what do you think about this? Or we pull out some old patents that haven't been used and got killed or have expired, and we're like, hey, look at these patents that could have existed in real life, but they never took advantage of. Or we're like, hey, what about this? And so I think, although you haven't really seen many of the things I'm saying right now because we've just gotten around to starting new rides, like Web Adventures is finished, and now a lot of what we're doing now is original rides that you can't find anywhere in real life. Obviously, Forbidden Adventure is pretty much the last one, I think, now that is somewhat focused on the real life ride. We're still trying to make a bunch of changes to make it our own and make it better than the real life one. But yeah, we're pretty focused on making new rides. But anyway, back to the point. Yeah, so we come up with ideas, we come up with some text or whatever, and we're like, okay, here's like a potential storyline for a ride. What do you think? Yes, no, bad, good, whatever, right? And then eventually that gets ironed out, and we then start making very rough placeholder like objects, like where things are gonna go, where we think certain things will work, right? And then it depends on the type of ride it is. If it's a coaster, then we make the track and we start getting all that assembled so that we can put the track in as soon as possible so that scenery can start being developed around the track and modeled, and we already know where things need to go, right? If it's a tracked ride, same thing goes, right? You usually want to have the whole track layout before you make any of the stuff. And so we'll typically have all the modelers make that stuff. They'll start developing, and then what usually happens in the development cycle is all the scenery, like what you see in the background and all that, gets finished, and the track is done, but nothing no, it doesn't run. There's no code. It's just here's the visual models, and it's done. And then I will eventually get to it. So yeah, so the modeling team finishes, and then it gets passed over into me. And what I do, along with the Epic Twin, is we install his ride system onto it, and we perfect the animation to the way we want it to look. And then once it's all animated and it looks nice, then I start adding triggers to it, and then I start making those triggers do effects in it. And that sounds simple, but the effects take a lot of work, right? You have to depends on what you're doing. If you're doing rigs, you have to make the rigs, and you need to make the animations for the rigs, you add sounds, lighting, and it takes a lot of time. And so that part usually takes 2 months once I get handed a finished ride. Um, just because, like, yeah, I work a full time job outside of this, so it takes me to about 2 months to eventually finish a ride at the quality I want it. And so yeah, once the effects are in and all that starts running, then obviously you have a running ride. And then, for example, if you have alien attack, it has a very specific thing that needs to be added, which is the whole gun shooting system. So that was the good thing about alien attack. Although it was, quote, coming soon for 5 years, what actually happened is Andrew and the team working on the modeling, they worked on it while I started working on the shooting system because I knew what had to be done. I just needed to do it. And so they were working on modeling, I was working on the shooting system, and then we kind of finished those things at the same time. And then I jumped into the ride vehicle system, and then while we were working on the ride system, I kind of threw in the laser shooting system into it. And eventually we had the whole shooting system in and the whole ride vehicle moving, but with no effects. And then I was just like shooting walls and stuff when we were testing. So yeah, and then eventually that once we finish the effects and it's nearing completion, around 90 to 95%, I typically will go, and that's when we start making all like the thumbnails, the graphics, and we start writing out the announcements that are going to be for that project, how we're going to announce it with the dates, and we come up with everything. And like, if you saw the giant development plan we had for Halloween Scare Nights, you guys would be like, "What?" I think it's like 3 pages long of just days we were going to announce things and what each announcement was for. it Yeah, we had all the dates lined up, so that's what's so funny is people were like speculating when things would happen. I think before we made a single announcement, every single date for all those announcements was planned before we even started.
Fair enough. Yep.
So yeah.
Okay. So the final question I have for you, and it's sort of the mic drop big question. If you had the opportunity to start this journey all over again, what would you do differently?
Huh. That's a great question. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with what we've done so far. And I like where the game is, right? Obviously, we're here right now because the game has done somewhat well, right? It's a good theme park. I enjoy it. We still work on it. I think two things I probably would have. Who knows where they would have ended up if we changed them, but I don't really want to change much except for two things. One, I wish we had already a better job slash fun like role playing thing in the game. There's a lot of work that I don't know how I'm gonna get to, like when I'm gonna prioritize it, but I wish the jobs were better. I wish there was, I guess, I I don't want to like spoil a huge update that I have like written down, but I want to make the jobs a lot better, right? But then the second thing I would like to change is there's not a gameplay loop at all to our game, right? If you go and ride the rides, the only reason you really want to come back is either you really really like the park, right? Which there's a good amount of people who do, but if you're a casual fan, you're not going to come back until we add a new ride, and that makes it really difficult for this game to like fund accurately because it doesn't make very much money unless we do ride releases, and each of those ride releases costs money to do. And so if we had we have been trying to answer this question for like I swear 5-6 years now. What gameplay loop can we do, and like how do we get people to I I don't even know if it's possible in a theme park game. It's a social environment. I think we've almost done everything we can do without ruining the game. I don't want to like introduce something that completely changes what the idea of the game is because it's supposed to be a theme park, and I don't really know how else we can go about trying to monetize the game more than we already have without ruining it or changing its genre. So maybe I don't actually want to change that, but nonetheless, I'd like to have better jobs. But then, like the whole idea then comes like, okay, if I have better jobs, why would I work those jobs if there's something I can spend my Unibucks for, right? And so it's this huge giant question we always have, like why work on the jobs when we don't have a good Unibucks, like a really good thing to spend Unibucks on. Obviously, we like the buddies and like the trails and stuff, but we still feel like we're missing something that you could do with Unibucks that you could earn with better jobs. But which we work on first? Do we work on that, but then not have a good way to earn it, or do we make a good way to earn it and then add it? It's just like they're not going to happen at the same time because there's too much work. There's too much work involved. But yeah, if I had to change something, it'd be figure that question out and have it done already. But yeah, hindsight is 2020.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. So I want to give a massive thank you for your time and joining
Yeah,
me
of
on this
course.
interview. And
Yeah, of
thank you to
course.
everyone for listening. We've had a ton of questions come through. But with
Yeah.
that being said, do you want to add anything extra?
Well, no. Thanks for listening to this. I do enjoy talking about how the game came to be and all the development process, because there's obviously tons of things that happen in the background that maybe a lot of people don't know about. And no, I enjoy talking about it because we don't really get to talk about it to too many people, but it's fun. So I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope everyone keeps sticking around. We have some cool things planned for the future. Um, yeah, I'd love to just like tell everybody, but then that kind of defeats the whole surprise aspect. So I hope you guys stick around. We have some cool stuff on the horizon.
Cool. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us on this Q&A, and that's it for the Q&A. So don't forget to keep looking on the event site, and there may be another one very soon. So with that being said, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you all later. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.